Kept healing back up. Porygon 2 can do something similar in this set where if you stick around for a while, you can recover the damage off. Being able to recover is really important. But there was also that late game Regieleki that was the adjustment, right, in that last set. This time around, if Venusaur goes down, there is no consistent late game damage against the Kyogre other than maybe, I don't know, I guess like Groudon if you have the Sun up. So for Jonathan, it's about playing well in the early game and then having that Kyogre to try to sweep through in the end game. And for Yoav, it's about conserving your weather so that Jonathan can't just bring out that Kyogre and sweep through into the last couple of turns of the game.
All right, so another Groudon versus Kyogre classic matchup. Let's get into this match. Losers finals. This is going to be such a big match here. Of course, we are going to see that Venusaur Torkoal yet again, but with the lack of Umbreon, of course, on Yoav's team. I mean, this Venusaur hopefully will be faring a lot better this time around.
Yeah, you know, most critically here, now you don't have to deal with your Venusaur getting put to sleep. Jonathan in that last set ended up falling asleep with the Venusaur all 3 times, right? All 3 turns with the Yawn. So this time around, you know, Yoav has that Grimmsnarl. Can be a little bit disruptive. Thunder Wave is definitely a little tricky to play around. It just ensures Yoav's Venusaur will always go first, and then you have to deal with the potential for paralysis rolls as well. So, you know, not as effective as sleep necessarily in terms of denying attacks, but then Jonathan's got a couple points every turn with dealing with the paras. So Yoav going for that max right away. His Venusaur, I believe, is a little bit more offensive, and so has that Life Orb, has that Max Quake. So we'll see if Torkoal can actually survive, because if it can and get a Yawn off against Yoav's Venusaur, it's a really big deal.
All right, both of these players going for the maxes on the first turn here, just looking to apply some big pressure. Max Venusaur, of course, coming out from Jonathan's end as well, but definitely is not going to be liking that Thunder Wave coming out from the Grimmsnarl here. But at least with the Thunder Wave, it's going to be slow, but at least it's not a sleep.
So there it is with the Thunder Wave, and it's always, you know, a little bit nerve-wracking to get your Maximum paralyzed on turn 1, right? Because that's just 3 turns of paralysis you're trying to attack through. There is the Max Quake on the Torkoal, but it hangs on.
And that Torkoal just hanging in here. Of course, you don't want to see that Torkoal surviving on here, especially with the pressure that this Torkoal can offer with things like Yawn, which Yoav does not have on his side here. So let's see, Venusaur opting to go for that Max Ooze into the Grimmsnarl, dealing about half of its damage, and of course getting a special attack boost on Jonathan's end. And it's all going to be down to what this Torkoal opts to do now that it managed to hang on through the turn. And it is a Yawn into Yoav's Venusaur here. Jonathan having his Venusaur yawned all throughout the last set, finally being able to dish that back out and yawn someone else's Venusaur for once.
Yeah, that definitely is a big advantage. I think in the sense that you'll get an extra turn of Max with the Venusaur in terms of just getting another attack off. I think at this point, both players will want a Vine Lash certainly to get that residual damage adding up. Yoav, as you saw, opting for that Vine Lash into Torkoal, that covers for a Protect option. Really like that option. And also, you know, free opportunity to get that Light Screen up. So, you know, I think both players are probably decently content with how turn 1 played out, but it is critical Torkoal survives. If it doesn't survive there, you know, you just knock it out. And then Venusaur on Yoav's side is in such a good position, especially because it's just consistently outspeeds Jonathan's Venusaur now. So Vine Lash residual damage will go up, but in the end, Yoav will only be able to, you know, knock out 1 Pokemon, but Venusaur on Jonathan's end takes that full para.
Jonathan not getting a break in this game either, just commenting about how he wasn't asleep at least, but being paralyzed is not going to really do him too much better here. But at least now it is time for Yoav's Venusaur to take a nap. But that full paralysis on like turn 2 of the max is definitely something you don't want to see if you're Jonathan here.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing about Thunder Wave, right? As soon as you get paralyzed, each turn you are hoping that you don't get that full paralysis. So, you know, it made sense for Yoav to go for it right from turn 1, just slow down the Venusaur. That's really important in a matchup like this. In the end, you know, getting that Vine Lash damage, residual adding up. However, you know, what's interesting here is that despite both players having max, like, they're not actually going to really knock out more than 1 Pokemon, basically, in their 3 turns of max. So, for Jonathan's end, once again, your goal is to try to not get another full paralysis.
No break for Jonathan's down in the losers finals. The Torkoal is going to be able to hit a little bit of chip into each of Yoav's Pokemon, but unfortunately is going to go down from that Vine Lash. So somehow in the previous games, at least getting 2 turns of max is a lot better than the 1 turn it got before the full paralysis the following 2.
Exactly, yeah, and it actually doesn't even end up getting that Vine Lash at all, right? So there's no residual damage adding up on Yoav's side of the field right now. So definitely a couple tough turns there for Jonathan in the end. Not able to do very much with the max, and that's why, you know, Thunderwave can be such a good attack. We saw it so much back in the earlier generations. It's a little bit weaker now, of course, because Thunderwave can miss. Paralysis is a little bit worse than back in the day, but having a lot of strong effect here. And Grimmsnarl being able to slow down everything is a really big deal because Jonathan typically plays towards this late game tail when there's another Thunderwave coming out. And once again, like, Jonathan's win con is to try to, you know, gain weather control, but it gets increasingly more difficult to do that as you lose more resources.
Opposing Venusaur finally making a move here, just opting to go for that Weather Ball into Yoav's Venusaur, and is just going to be taking it out of the field. So those KOs that it couldn't pick up well max, at least it can pick up afterwards. And another paralysis. Those tornadoes not faring too well. These paralyses on Jonathan's end are just stacking up, and I mean, you're Jonathan. This is just some bad luck headed your way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustrating. So I think, you know, regardless of how this game plays out, you might want to consider knocking out Grimmsnarl as quickly as possible, right, in the next game, so that it only gets at most maybe 1 Thunder Wave off. But a lot of favorable paralysis rolls for Yoav in this one. Porygon 2 comes out, so Venusaur finally, you know, manages to avoid it from getting paralyzed, does hit that Sleep Powder, but the main issue for Jonathan right now is that there's not that much damage output right now, and Tornadus, another paralysis. I feel like I've seen this one before.
At least in a best of 5, if you are going to get unlucky on this paralysis rolls in game 1, if this ends up being the difference, you have to just hope you don't get this unlucky in the following games. But at least hitting that Sleep Powder onto the Porygon 2, it's not just all the rolls in Yoav's favor, but Jonathan at least can hit some statuses back on Yoav's end of the field here.
Yeah, it's got to be a little bit frustrating if you're Jonathan, right? Because the whole point was, hey, if Tornadus gets attacks off those 2 turns, like Heat Waves, for example, Grimmsnarl feigns, and then you actually win the Weather War, right? So if you win that Weather War, that means you get Kyogre out. You switch it in after Yoav brings out the Groudon, and then you have full weather control. So it's a really, really unfortunate, you know, back-to-back paralysis there, and in the end, now it feels like Yoav is in a solid spot. Of course, with Sleep Powder, there's always a way, but now you're trying to hit Sleep Powders through paralysis, you know, and you're gonna go first so the Pokemon can just wake up immediately. Tornadus is gonna go for Protect here, but, you know, if Porygon manages to wake up quickly enough, it's still looking really strong. Oh my goodness.
And not even just getting paralyzed, but the Porygon 2 managing to wake up as well, setting that Trick Room, hitting the Sleep Powder through the paralysis was amazing and all, but if the Porygon 2 is just going to wake up right away, I mean, that's not what you want to see.
No, and at this point, it feels like the game is lost. It's really difficult, bar a lot of crazy Precipice Blades misses. I like the decision here on Yoav's side to Ice Beam and Precipice Blades to just get the KO on Venusaur. This is actually a really smart switch by Jonathan because he's probably just going for a Weather Ball in the rain against the Groudon. So if Precipice Blades misses and Venusaur survives, right, then you can actually maybe KO the Groudon. That gives you a chance of winning this one because there actually isn't that much damage output. So, oh, Venusaur actually outspeed, but goes for the Sleep Powder and misses.
Absolutely no luck for Jonathan in this first match. Precipice Blades, of course, is also going to hit both of the targets here, and it takes that Venusaur down.
Yeah, so that was actually really smart as well from Jonathan to bring in the Kyogre. That gets rid of the Sun, so then you actually outspeed the Groudon under Trick Room because Venusaur is paralyzed, but actually opts to go for the Sleep Powder rather than something like a Leaf Storm or a Weather Ball. Perhaps not confident on actually picking up the knockout there. I mean, if you do connect on Groudon, that definitely gives you an out as well. So Jonathan fighting really hard, but has just got every unfavorable roll in this game. I think that's like 6 paras, a miss as well, so it's not been great for Jonathan here, and now it just feels like he has just far too few resources, especially with this Eerie Impulse onto the Kyogre.
Tornado's opting to protect, but this Kyogre, I mean, it is still in rain, but the -2 special attack is not going to fare too well. It is going to connect with that Origin Pulse, doing barely nothing to that Porygon 2, and not even picking up the KO on the Grimmsnarl.
I think, you know, at this point, if you're Jonathan, this game was really frustrating, right? But it feels like so much went wrong for him to lose the game, and I feel like he brought the right Pokemon at the end of the day. You know now that your Torkoal can survive that Max Quake from the opposing Venusaur.
Missing a Sleep Powder, the other Sleep Powder, a Wake Up after the first turn, is definitely unlucky, but that's exactly what it is, unlucky. So even going into this game 2 here, the luck should surely turn. So let's get into this game 2 to see if he can start faring a little better in this game so far. So Venusaur is going to be coming out next to the Torkoal, and there's going to be the Grimmsnarl next to the Venusaur. No surprises, no switch-ins, but I mean, I feel like this is a pretty strong lead for both players here.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think like Jonathan had what, like 6 full paras, Sleep Powder missed there as well, Precipice Blades hit. Like there was a lot that needed to go wrong for him to lose that last game the way he did. So, you know, content to just lead the same thing again, saying, well, I got really unlucky, and I feel like, you know, if I don't get unlucky, then I'll just be in a better spot than my opponent. So yeah, you know, the odds of getting paralyzed as many times as he did were really slim. Once again, it's about trying to eliminate Venusaur in the early game. You want to deny that Trick Room in the late game against Porygon as well, and the goal is to just get Kyogre in a good spot. So I'm not surprised to see Jonathan actually go with the same combination of Pokemon, just because they still match up pretty well in this league matchup, all things considered. You just want to, you know, hope that you don't get paralyzed so many times, and once again, the odds of that were really slim in that last one.
They're already so slim in the last one, so they're surely slimmer in this match. Both players going for the Max Venusaur. Yet again, I feel like this is a story that has been already told, reading the same chapter over and over as these players are looking to apply some early pressure on with these Venusaurs. It's all going to be about, though, whether this Venusaur can fare up better against the Thunder Wave that the Grimmsnarl, of course, went for right away. It worked so well in the last match. How could it not this time around? But it actually misses. Jonathan finally, with a little luck, misses the full paralysis, but takes a big hit from Weather Ball, Max Flare from the opposing Venusaur, but gets the opportunity to just fire back with a Max Ooze into the Grimmsnarl, picking up some massive damage here.
Well, there's the answer to your question, Sierra. Yeah, if you miss Thunder Wave, that's a start, right? That guarantees you an attack. Now, Jonathan's Venusaur is pretty slow, it looks like, and he's been consistently slower in all these Venusaur matchups, so, you know, investing a little bit more in bulk, it looks like, critically survives that Max Flare in the sun, so that's a big deal. And it's funny, in that last set, Jonathan was the one that kept getting hit by Yawn on the Venusaur. This time around, it's his Venusaur that keeps getting hit. And the awkward thing with Venusaur always in the second turn is, right, do you go for the Vine Lash? You really want that residual damage typically for the late game here. But Yoav actually opts for that Max Flare into that Max Guard. So great Max Guard by Jonathan there. Doesn't end up taking any damage. Gets a big Heat Wave off to eliminate Grimmsnarl. Now Venusaur falls asleep as well. So, you know, this game definitely shaken up very differently from that last one.
That Max Guard was so nice, especially since Torkoal did on the previous turn hit that Yawn into Yoav's Venusaur. So not only does Jonathan's Venusaur get to stay alive, it's not paralyzed, the Grimmsnarl is not on the field, and Yoav's Venusaur is asleep, and this is just such a better position this game.
Yeah, and the Venusaur has to take a guaranteed turn of sleep here, right? So what's really tricky is now Jonathan can just keep spamming Yawn with that Torkoal and putting Yoav in a really precarious position where you basically feel forced to switch out every turn, especially with Jonathan getting one more turn of Max with his Venusaur as well. So critical here to get that Yawn Torkoal to be able to put this disruption on. Vine Lash, you know, now will just add up with that residual damage as well. That will be very helpful going into this late game, and I like the decision to just go for that Vine Lash. The Ice Beam here is going to pick up the KO onto Venusaur, but that is actually pretty good if you're Jonathan, right? You get a free switch in now. Venusaur wasn't going to do too much after these early turns, other than maybe go for a Sleep Powder. It's supposed to get Weather Ball as well. In the end, Jonathan actually goes for the Heat Wave rather than going for the Yawn. You can certainly respect that because you just want to get damage onto the Venusaur. Venusaur is so close to fainting, and if you can knock out Venusaur, then Kyogre can cleanly sweep this game, right? So at this point in the match, you've distributed so much damage across the board. Venusaur now has taken, you know, it can wake up this next turn, so that'd be critical, but I like the decision to bring out Tornadus here. You can just go for Heat Wave here, and for Yoav right now, you're really hoping to get a quick wake up, maybe hit a Sleep Powder. He's actually gonna opt for the Earth Power here into the Torkoal slot. That one's a little tricky because I don't think you're actually gonna pick up the knockout with that anyway, but perhaps just setting it up. Does manage to wake up though, set it up for a KO, that is.
Earth Power dealing a good chunk of damage, but as we know, that Torkoal is going to be just a-okay here with the Citrus Berry. But The Torkoal with that Yawn pressure, I mean, definitely is putting pressure out on Yoav's side, so definitely wanting to eliminate that. But this Heat Wave coming out from the Tornadoes is going to be picking up the KO on the Venusaur, finally taking it down and dealing some nice chip to the Porygon 2, though the Porygon 2 doesn't really care too much and just opting to recover to just make it a little bit more pesky out on the field.
Yeah, you have to recover in that position because if you go for anything else, Porygon will faint from the Heat Wave plus the Vine Lash damage, and if Porygon faints, then it's basically disastrous, right? Because then it's Groudon versus the world, and Jonathan obviously has the Kyogre in the back that can come in and just cleanly win the game at this point. So, this is definitely going to be an interesting finish. One of my questions is whether or not, like, Hurricane can pick up the knockout onto Porygon if you switch the Torkoal out, for example. Torkoal here could also just go for a Yawn right now, right? I like the decision to go for Swords Dance and the Trick Room. I think the comeback potential here is, hey, Groudon just sweeping. Even if the sun is up, well, if you outspeed Kyogre under Trick Room, then you can just go for Precipice Blades, pick up a knockout before it can attack. So Jonathan's move here has to be really, really critical. You have to get enough out of this turn, either deny the Trick Room or get a Yawn off. And just going to be Heat Wave coming out.
Heat Wave dealing a good amount of damage to that Porygon 2, bringing it right down. Yoav's looking to just set up, going for a Swords Dance on this Groudon here, so it could potentially look at sweeping. Porygon 2, as you said, so key here and is just going to recover so that Vine Lash doesn't end up taking it out of the game. Torkoal is just going to go for the Yawn into the Porygon 2 here, and that's going to be big. No swap-ins left on Yoav's end. It means after this turn, Porygon 2 will be going to bed with no chances to keep recovering.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting endgame here. I think, you know, Yawn onto Porygon just means after this turn, it can't go for any shenanigans like Air Impulse, for example. So this turn is interesting, right? I feel like Yoav wants to Trick Room here for the Groudon in the late game, right? Because you know Jonathan has that Kyogre in the back. All Kyogre needs to do is come in safely and outspeed the Groudon and just pick up a KO onto it. So hovering recover, I actually really like Yoav's decision to recover last turn to allow it to survive a little bit longer. It looks like he's going to go for it again, but the interesting thing is now if you just pick up a KO, Kyogre comes in for free, goes for a water type attack, and then boom, just picks up the knockouts.
Torkoal just opting to stay safe here on this turn. Jonathan hitting that Hurricane on to the Porygon 2. Of course, this should be healing it up, but is definitely... Oh no, the Rock Slide miss on the Tornado as well. There is going to be that recover, but missing the move. The Torkoal protects you, miss it on the Tornado, and the Porygon 2 does recover its health, but is just going to be going to sleep, so even a double up, there will be no opportunity for this Porygon 2 to recover.
Yeah, I think Jonathan actually really wanted to see that Rock Slide hit. You know, typically misses are good, but if that connects, you get the free switch into Kyogre. Trick Room isn't up. Kyogre presumably just outspeeds both of these two Pokemon. Groudon on these team compositions typically would be slower because it's beneficial for Trick Room as well. So, yeah, I think that miss actually hurt a little bit. Felt like Jonathan had a pretty good path to victory. Now it's weird where I suppose you could just probably protect the Tornadus, sacrifice the Torkoal. Actually doesn't protect either, but that also makes sense. You know, you sack both Pokemon, get a free switch into Kyogre, and just click Water Spout. Water Spout at this point should seal up the game, assuming you're faster with the Kyogre.
Of course, that Rock Slide is going to connect on both of these Pokemon, and as you said, taking them both out of the fields here. And I feel like it might come down to this, well, this Porygon is hurting, so I don't think it'd even survive any attack from this Kyogre coming in to even get the opportunity to set up a Trick Room.
Yeah, I think Light Screen is still up on Yoav's end, so basically what this comes down to, first of all, is the speed interaction between Kyogre and Groudon. Typically, Kyogres are faster than Groudons just based off the team compositions that both players have, but if Groudon actually manages to outspeed Kyogre, you have a chance. But if you're not confident in outspeeding, your play here is to protect, try to wake up with the Porygon and get up a Trick Room. The Light Screen is up, but Groudon's definitely not taking a Water Spout from this range. It looks like Yoav's just going to click that Precipice Blades, hoping to be faster than the Kyogre here. If you are faster and you connect, well, you're up 2-0. If not, then that should be game over, and Jonathan will tie us up at 1 game apiece. Who's going to go first? It's going to be Kyogre.
This Kyogre hitting a huge Water Spout here and just sweeping through Yoav's last 2 Pokemon to take this set to a 1-1. Yoav now, of course, has that information, knowing that this Kyogre is going to be outspeeding going in. It certainly is. That being said, let's get into this game 3 to see what adjustments these players can make, or if any adjustments at all. But we are going to see a big adjustment coming out on Jonathan's end, leading with that Kyogre this time around, next to that Tornadus, and then, of course, Venusaur and Grimmsnarl. That has worked for Yoav out on his end.
So I was going to say, I think one adjustment Yoav could have made if he didn't like how the last couple of games went was to actually bring out that Charizard. I believe his Charizard actually has Lumberry as well, so that'd be really helpful against the potential sleep. So maybe Jonathan leading Kyogre, expecting a mix-up from Yoav's and expecting that Charizard to come out. But Yoav can tend to just lead it with the same thing, and this is the awkward thing about leading Kyogre now, right? Like, you have to worry about Venusaur just maxing, going for Vine Lash. Kyogre is such a critical component to this team, so you really don't want to stay and just get hit by the Venusaur, so it feels like it needs to protect or switch out this turn. This is an interesting opportunity for Tornadus to potentially consider Dynamaxing as well, and so the switch into Venusaur here is very, very good, I think, for Jonathan, and let's see if it's a max. Oh!
It is going to be a max. We've seen Life Orb on this Tornadus. Does mean that in max, it can hit for a nice amount of damage, and with things like that Airstream, which is effective against this Venusaur, can definitely do some damage. So I feel like that's a very interesting adjustment, but I do like that, and it's certainly going to be putting some pressure on Yoav's end here, who is opting to max his own Venusaur in return.
Yeah, I think, you know, the scary thing about maxing always in that early game is what if Yoav switched the Grimmsnarl out into the Groudon and then Venusaur just launches a Sleep Powder into Tornadus, right? If you hit a Sleep Powder in something like Max's turn 1, it is a disaster. But in the end, no switch out into the Groudon, so no, you know, Sleep Powder coming out here with Yoav going for that max. So this should be an interesting trade-off, right? Because Tornadus now can do a sizable amount of damage with the Max Airstream. And interestingly enough, by giving your Venusaur the speed boost, first of all, look how much damage that Max Airstream does. Now, even if Yoav wants to switch out the Grimmsnarl out into Groudon, the Venusaur on Jonathan's end will outspeed because of that speed boost. So that's really, really critical, getting Venusaur in safely and kind of using Kyogre as bait. I really, really like that game plan where Kyogre didn't look like it was doing very much, but that was a fairly safe switch out. And in the end, I think Jonathan gets a better trade-off on this first turn.
That was so much damage that the Airstream did through the light screen as well that the Grimmsnarl opted to set up. Yoav returning back with that Maxizer into the Tornadus, doing some good damage, but unfortunately, this Tornadus is going to be going so fast the next time around and is just putting so much pressure on with these Max Airstreams.
Yeah, what's tricky here is, you know, Thunder Wave is probably your best option. I like the decision to Max Guard as well. Slow down the Venusaur so that Venusaur doesn't just sweep through you once Groudon comes out from Yoav's end. So I think that's important, you know, potentially reading into a Max Guard from the Tornadus. So good Thunder Wave onto the Venusaur slot, knowing that that can protect, whereas Tornadus, of course, can. Thunder Wave is going to come out, and it's going to miss the Venusaur!
Another miss. Thunder Wave here, certainly making up for all the para rolls in that first game here. I mean, Yoav had all the luck with paralysis the first game, and it's finally catching up to him. 2 games in a row missing big paralysis is here, so that certainly has to hurt.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, what Jonathan wants to do is just really eliminate the Venusaur, so I think a double up onto the Venusaur slot this turn makes a lot of sense. Once again, if you eliminate Venusaur, that opens the path to Kyogre sweeping in this end game. So yeah, I mean, that last turn, nothing really happened. That was a, you know, big Thunder Wave miss. We're going to see Venusaur just go for the Sludge Bomb. It's actually going to target the Groudon this time around, so trying to eliminate the Grimmsnarl, gets a Poison to boot as well. And as we saw, Venusaur actually opted for the Max Flare here onto Jonathan's Venusaur, so that means Jonathan can go for a big attack onto Yoav's Venusaur. You know the Venusaur just protected last turn. I think I would have liked to see a double up onto the Venusaur a little bit more from Jonathan, but in the end, this will probably work out anyway, because, yeah, now you're going to... Oh, it's actually a double up into the Groudon slot, so maybe expecting Venusaur to just switch out that turn, really wanting to knock out the Grimmsnarl or do a lot of damage into whatever switches in. So notably, the Venusaur will stick around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I definitely was expecting for both of the Venusaurs to be going down this turn, but Jonathan opting instead to go into the Groudon, definitely identifying it as a threat, bringing it down to about half its health and poisoned to boot here. So what do you think was his decision in not targeting down this Venusaur here?
I think realistically, Venusaur's already chipped away at so much, right? So now Jonathan can actually bring out Kyogre. Your Dynamax is over to Tornadus. You could actually very easily just click Tailwind and Water Spout. Yoav making that switch into Groudon actually makes this really awkward because now you're basically forced to switch the Groudon back out. And so in the end, I think it works out as well. You know, I was thinking there are multiple paths that Jonathan can take there. And I think he might not have wanted to double up onto the Venusaur because if you double up on a Venusaur, Venusaur max guards again and gets that double protect off, you're actually in a really precarious position. So in the end, knowing like Grimmsnarl can protect, you get guaranteed damage onto that slot, also covers for a switch out option, and because Yoav actually switched in the Groudon, now it's in a really, really bad spot, right? Full turns of rain right now. Tornadoes at +2 speed. So it kind of feels forced to switch out, but here's the thing, right? Venusaur's already so low. That's the only thing that resists water type attacks. So you have no safe switching into Water Spout at the moment, and that's what makes this really, really tough. Jonathan can very easily just click Tailwind, click Water Spout, and I don't know, I feel like you have to switch Groudon out here, reset the weather, or go for Paralysis, and looks like, yeah, that might be the route that Yoav is considering here, as Groudon just goes for a Protect this turn.
Tailwind, of course, coming out from that Tornado. So already speedy, the one's going to come even faster as that Kyogre does go for a Water Spout here. Of course, normally be huge damage, but it only needed to do a little bit to be picking off this Venusaur here. And this Kyogre Tornado is certainly scary on Jonathan's end of the field, especially considering what is left in the back for Yoav. But the Thunder Waves, I mean, it shifted the tide so much in that first game, so no reason to not go for it and see what can happen.
Yeah, with Thunder Wave, there's always a way, but what's also big here is that the Groudon is still going to be slower than the Kyogre, right? So Kyogre just needs to avoid the full para, and if it gets that Water Spout off, feels like it will win the game. So here it is. Thunder Wave finally connects. Yoav's missed the last couple, so let's see if Kyogre can attack through the full para this time around.
Hurricane first coming out into the Groudon and just takes that KO right away, so it's not even going to have to come down to the para on the Kyogre, which it's going to go and attack anyways. Nothing's going to slow it down as it brings the Grimmsnarl right down.
Yeah, so Jonathan also making a good decision to just Hurricane into Groudon, saying, hey, I've got the Life Orb, that poison damage is adding up. My Tornadus is pretty offensive. Even if you paralyze my Kyogre, I can just knock you out with Groudon. So correct decision making there. The one way, Yoav could get back into this game is stalling out Tailwind, with the Groudon sticking around and, clicking Rock Slide a bunch. And so turn one on Jonathan's end was really, really smart. And in the end, Grimmsnarl, oh, okay, going for the Thunder Wave.
Not something I was... I saw it quickly in the menu. I didn't know if I saw that. Opposing Kyogre is going to get paralyzed though. The Porygon 2, despite the self-paralysis, is not and will get that Ice Beam onto the Tornadoes here. So what do you think the reasoning is behind this paralysis?
The best explanation I can think of is to avoid any status conditions. You don't know what Jonathan's last one is. It actually is going to be the Incineroar this time around. So by paralyzing, it means like, let's say Torkoal came out from Jonathan's end, then you actually can't put it to sleep with the Yawn. So yeah, you don't see that very often, but I actually think it makes sense in the context of this match because Yoav's win condition at this point is hope the last one is Torkoal. I don't know. I mean, Porygon still just can't do any damage with Ice Beam, admittedly, so it felt like that game was over.
Let's head into this next match here, see what can be done from these players. Of course, Venusaur is going to be coming out next to the Torkoal again. Swap it up for one game, but going back to the same old Venusaur Grimmsnarl yet again on Yoav's side of the field. Interesting to go back, but I mean, it's a lead that's done well before, and if it can catch Yoav off guard a little bit, I mean, Jonathan just needs to take one more game to get picking up the set.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, maybe your best bet here, because you don't KO the Torkoal, was to just go for Sleep Powder, right? Like, Sleep can definitely put some things into your favor. That's kind of how Jonathan lost in that winner's final set. So Yoav actually content to just go for the Thunder Wave Max Play play again. The issue is that I'm not sure how much Thunder Wave really helps out against that Venusaur, because you're already faster with your Venusaur anyway, right? Jonathan's Venusaur is a little bit slower, a little bit bulkier, but I get the decision of Thunder Wave. It not only slows down Venusaur speed, but more importantly, it gets those potential full para rolls, right? So Yoav often should just play the first turn of this fourth game the same way, and it is tough. I don't know, I really would have maybe liked to see a Charizard come out in the lead here instead, but no Charizard, and in the end, just opting to, we've seen how this kind of lead has played out before.
Charizard definitely seems like it would be good, but definitely seems scary as well with the pressure of that Kyogre. Jonathan opting to match the max, get his own Max Venusaur out on the field here, and it's another showdown between these two beasts.
All right,
Thunder Wave coming out, and it does connect this time around, so there were some big misses in the last game, but finally able to connect as well as Yoav goes for the Max Quake into the Torkoal, bringing it right down. But as we saw before, this Torkoal's trained to not be taken down here and is going to stick around.
And once again, that's such a critical survival because it means that the Torkoal heals back from the Citrus Berry. And the Citrus is really critical there as well because it means the Torkoal won't faint from a Vine Lash and can potentially get another attack off. And yeah, I mean, we've seen this play out before, and I think it, you know, worked out more in Jonathan's favor. So no full paralysis, notably on Venusaur, and I feel like, you know, from Yoav's position, you don't really want to be relying on Thunder Wave full paras, right? Because once again, the odds of that are relatively slim, especially over the course of multiple turns. And game 1 was kind of just an anomaly. So once again, Venusaur gets hit by that yawn. And I feel like that's just such a big deal because the issue for Yoav is he's never able to do enough damage in the late game. You have to basically position yourself to get Groudon under Trick Room. But that's really hard to do, especially when the Vine Lash damage starts adding up as quickly as it does. Part of the benefit of Torkoal on Jonathan's team here is that it has that yawn. So even if Trick Room goes up, you can just yawn and put things to sleep. And so Yoav gonna make the switch out immediately this time around. He's, you know, definitely hoping for some full paras, definitely hoping to get Trick Room up, but I'm not sure this is just the best line of action to take.
Yeah, we were just talking about how the Porygon 2 and the Grimmsnarl just not really offering enough pressure, but we'll see the Porygon 2 at least hit the field to try and make something happen, as there's no Protect on Jonathan's Torkoal here. So it is going to be hit with the full force of this Vine Lash and will be at least picking up that KO.
Yeah, at least critical to get that knockout. I feel like if you don't get the KO there, it's such a big deal. But look how much Porygon 2 takes on that switch in, right? The win condition for Yoav felt like it was to get Trick Room up, but now your Venusaur falls asleep. Your Porygon is so close to getting KO'd. It's just a disastrous start to this game for Yoav, right? Because now Jonathan gets another turn of Max to work with. Already got that Max Ooze boost on the Venusaur as well. You get a free switch in into either the Tornadus or the Kyogre. I think Tornadus makes a lot of sense here because you can just bring it out and click Heat Wave. You can even Max Ooze to give it another special attack boost as well. But Kyogre is going to be the one that comes out. I think that makes a lot of sense as well because right now you can just spam Water Spout and Max Ooze. So either way, I mean, Yoav is definitely hoping for some full paras here, but I think switching in Porygon there might have been a mistake. You know, I guess what he was playing for was hoping for a full para there, and then getting Trick Room up the next turn. But now Venusaur on Yoav's end is going to take a guaranteed turn to sleep. His Porygon is just going to faint as well, and I feel like the main win con was to try to deny Trick Room, but now, yeah, or get Trick Room up, and now Yoav just can't get Trick Room up anymore.
Yeah, losing that pure win con in the Trick Room's definitely not going to be faring too well for Yoav here, as this Venusaur on Jonathan's side, not letting anything slow it down here and just getting to hit another attack into this Venusaur, going for that Max Ooze to get yet another special attack boost, which is going to be a special attack boost on this Kyogre as well.
Yeah, and that's so scary, right? We've seen how much damage you can do into Groudon. That full power Water Spout, even in Sun, did around 75%, right? So Origin Pulse now, even in Sun with that special attack boost, will do a lot more. Grimmsnarl comes out as well. I mean, this is just so tricky now. I think Yoav is basically hoping for a quick wake up with this Venusaur, also hope to paralyze everything and hope for multiple paralysis, but it's even trickier now because you can't get that Trick Room up at any point. So I like the decision to bring out the Grimmsnarl first. It's actually going to trying to opt for that light screen. It's tough. I don't know. I think I'd rather like to see a Thunder Wave into Kyogre. You're so far behind in this game anyway. You're basically hoping for a lot of paras. Weather Ball into Venusaur switching out into Groudon certainly is a possibility. And at this point, I think with this play, Yoav is hoping for Jonathan to misplay a little bit, right? Jonathan is ahead in this game, and Jonathan might feel fear right now with the Kyogre, and if you actually protect the Kyogre as Venusaur snipes down the Venusaur on the opposing end, you can actually still come back in this game. And so I like the decision here from Yoav to try to go for this play, but Jonathan's also going to conserve that Kyogre. Tornadus, a perfect Pokemon to have in the back this time around.
Of course, we're seeing the swap ins from both players here. Of course, the Kyogre being so key in the match is not wanting to risk anything, especially with the potential for Yoav's Venusaur to be waking up here. But it's not going to. It's just going to keep dozing away. But Jonathan's Venusaur not actually faring too much better, and it's actually just going to take a full para instead.
Yeah, I mean, critical turn for the Venusaur to not wake up there. You get a Life Orb Weather Ball into Jonathan's Venusaur. Now, yeah, I mean, if you get that knockout, then you actually could win the Weather War, right? Because then Kyogre is just forced to come out. So that's a nice Weather Ball play, but ends up not waking up with Venusaur, and that's why, once again, this sleep is so volatile in this game, and Yoav hasn't done a great job preventing it from happening. So when you get those unfavorable rolls, I mean, 3 turns of sleep, for example, can just be so detrimental. So now Groudon in a really awkward spot. Jonathan, on the other hand, is free to, I think, just click Tailwind and target the Venusaur slot. If you knock out Venusaur, that's the biggest threat to Kyogre out of the way. So yeah, Yoav fighting for his tournament life here, but, you know, Groudon switching out here definitely makes things tougher.
Of course, Grimmsnarl coming
Oh,
in.
it's
Venusaur
another turn to
doesn't
sleep.
even wake up to give Yoav a chance here, as this Cornelius does go for that Heat Wave, taking the Venusaur out, and to boot, getting the burn on the Grimmsnarl as well. Just a little insult to injury.
Yeah, maybe, you know, a little bit to reverse how that first game went, but I think that's certainly going to be game over now. You have Kyogre in the lane, Venusaur for Yoav ends up staying asleep this entire time, and once again, that's the tricky thing with sleep, right? In the worst case, which happens, you know, a fair amount of the times, you just don't get to attack for 3 turns in a row. So the main thing here, I think Yoav really just needed to do a better job denying the yawns from coming out onto the Venusaur. And in fact, it reminds me a lot of the winners final set where Jonathan just kept getting yawned by the Umbreon, right? So yawn has actually been such a critical component to the last 2 sets that we've seen, and players haven't done a very good job of denying the yawn. And the thing is, if you get your max Pokemon hit with that sleep, you know, you only get 2 turns rather than 3. That's such a big deal in the dynamic of this matchup. And then you're really hoping to wake up in the subsequent turns. If you don't wake up, like what happened to Yoav in that last game, it is basically a disaster. So Jonathan keeps his composure, does not get tilted after what was a disastrous first game with all of those paras, all of the misses, and ends up taking 3 games in a row and will be advanced.